Even before cars were invented, the most powerful kings and emperors already had luxurious and expensive carriages. And they didn't just use them for travel. Instead, it was also a symbol of their wealth, power, and high status. Today, the price of some of these remaining carriages reaches millions of dollars, and others are considered extremely valuable historical treasures. In this video, we will learn about 10 of the most amazing ancient carriages that were once used by some of the most powerful leaders in history. But before we start the discussion, I would like to ask you for a like and please subscribe to our channel. This is a huge help for us content creators. So let's get started. Number 10, Tutankhamun's Royal Chariots, Ancient Egypt. In 1922, the archaeologist Howard Carter made a discovery. Howard Carter discovered the tomb of Pharaoh Tutankhamun in Egypt. This is one of the most important archaeological discoveries in history, because most of the items inside the tomb were almost intact after being sealed for more than 3,000 years. One of the most amazing discoveries was the 6 royal chariots of the young pharaoh. Before being placed in the tomb, these were carefully dismantled to fit through the narrow corridors. Afterwards, they were reassembled inside along with the golden artifacts, weapons, and other valuable items believed to be useful to the king in the afterlife. The 6 chariots did not all have the same purpose. Some were for royal ceremonies and were covered with gold leaf, featuring designs that depicted Tutankhamun as a warrior and a hunter. There were also lighter chariots believed to be used for hunting or even in battle. The craftsmanship of these chariots is also remarkable. The wood was steamed to make it easier to shape into the correct curves. Because of this, the entire frame became sturdier without becoming heavier. The wheels, on the other hand, had 6 spokes, making them lighter and sturdier compared to the old solid wheels of other ancient civilizations. Another one of its smartest designs was the floor. Instead of solid wood, the Egyptians used interwoven leather straps. This helped reduce the vibrations of the chariot. In other words, they already had a simple suspension system more than 3,000 years before the modern vehicle was invented. To this day, Tutankhamun's chariots are among the oldest complete royal chariots ever found in the world. They are not just symbols of a pharaoh's power. They are also proof that the level of engineering and craftsmanship in ancient Egypt was already very advanced more than 3,300 years ago. Number 9, the Crown's Golden Carriage, United Kingdom. When it comes to the most famous royal carriage in the world, almost nothing can beat the Gold Stagecoach of the United Kingdom. At first glance, it's easy to think that it's made of pure gold, because wherever you look, you'll see almost nothing but golden decorations. But in reality, it's not solid gold. According to the Royal Collection, its main body is made of wood that is only covered with a thin layer of gold leaf. It was made to look extremely luxurious without using a lot of pure gold. This carriage was first commissioned by King George III in 1760. After almost 2 years of construction, it was completed in 1762. It was designed by the famous architect Sir William Chambers, while the builder was the London coach builder Samuel Butler. This carriage is enormous. It weighs approximately 4 tons. It is almost 24 feet long and reaches up to 12 feet in height. That means it's even heavier than many SUVs today. Because of its extreme weight, 2 or even 4 horses are not enough. It takes 8 horses just to pull this. And even with 8 horses pulling, it still moves very slowly. Most of the time, it's only about as fast as a person walking. But size isn't the reason why the Gold Stagecoach became famous. The real reason is its role in the history of the British monarchy. Since the coronation of King William IV in 1831, almost every king and queen of Britain has used this coach for their coronation. So whenever a new monarch ascends the throne, there's a big chance that this will be the vehicle the whole world will see. When you look at every detail of it, you'll notice that there's almost no empty space left. There are carvings of different symbols, golden decorations, and large paintings on both sides. These images depict scenes from Roman mythology. The paintings were made by the Italian artist Giovanni Battista Cipriani. On top of the carriage, there are 3 small angels, or cherubs. They represent England, Scotland, and Ireland while holding some of the symbols of the British coronation. At the lower part, there are 4 large carvings of tritons, mythical creatures from Greek mythology that are half human and half fish. For the artists of that time, these designs were symbols of the strength and power of the kingdom. But there is a surprising fact about this carriage. It is said to be one of the most uncomfortable vehicles used by kings and queens. How did that happen? The reason is simple. When the Gold Stagecoach was made, the modern suspension system used in vehicles today did not exist yet. Instead of metal springs, the entire body of the carriage was only suspended by thick leather straps. When it goes over bumps, the shaking doesn't go away. Instead, the whole carriage sways even more. With every step of the horses, its body moves backward and forward. When it turns, it also sways strongly to the left and right. Because of this, it's like you're riding a small boat being tossed by the waves at sea. This is not just an exaggeration. Many British monarchs themselves have said this. King William the IV, who was also a former naval officer, said that he felt like he was in rough seas while riding it. Queen Victoria, on the other hand, often avoided using this carriage because she didn't like the excessive shaking. King George VI also said that this was one of the most uncomfortable rides he had ever experienced. And in 2018, Queen Elizabeth II was asked about the Gold Stagecoach in a documentary. Her brief answer became almost world famous. She said that it was not really made to be comfortable to ride in. And if we think about it, she's right. The main purpose of the Gold Stagecoach is not to make the king or queen comfortable. Its purpose is to show everyone the wealth, power, and prestige of the British government. There's another unusual detail. Because of its size and weight, it's also difficult to stop. According to the records of the Royal Collection, braking needs to begin far from the actual stopping point. There was even a person walking behind the carriage to control the brake using a lever. Over more than 260 years, some parts have already been replaced. Rubber tires were added to make it safer to use. Some of the equipment inside was also repaired. But the main details and design are still almost the same as when it was made in 1762. This means that even today, kings and queens still experience almost the same shaking that their ancestors felt. More than 2 centuries have passed. So even though it's not the most comfortable vehicle in history, it remains one of the most important symbols of the British monarchy and one of the most famous royal carriages ever made. Number 8, Napoleon's mobile command carriage. There is one carriage in history that did not just serve as a vehicle. It was also an office, a sleeping quarters, and a command center for one of the greatest generals in Europe. That carriage belonged to Napoleon Bonaparte. Throughout the time of his war campaigns, he was almost always on the move. Because of this, he needed a vehicle that could serve as a small headquarters while on the road. So he had a special campaign carriage made. It wasn't the most beautiful or the most luxurious carriage of his time, but it was one of the most practical and important vehicles for a leader in Europe. It was designed for long journeys. Its body was sturdier compared to ordinary carriages, and it had a better suspension so the bumps on the roads wouldn't be felt as much. But what was truly remarkable was what was inside it. Almost every space had its own purpose. There was a separate compartment for battle maps. There was a dedicated compartment for important documents. There was a small library containing books that Napoleon read while traveling. There was a silver tea set and utensils so he could have breakfast even while traveling. There was also a travel case for his personal belongings. And most importantly, there was a folding camp bed hidden under the main seat. When night caught up with him on the road, he no longer had to look for a place to stay. He could sleep right inside the carriage while the journey continued. Upon arriving at the next destination, he was ready to plan a new operation. In short, this carriage was like a mobile office for an emperor. While the horses were moving, he could eat, read, make war plans, and govern his empire. Speed was also very important to Napoleon. He was known for being impatient and didn't want to waste time. That's why he ordered his coachman to maintain the fastest but safest pace throughout the journey. Because of this, Napoleon's drivers were among the best in Europe at that time. But speed wasn't the only thing that mattered to him. Security was also important. Whenever he traveled, there were always soldiers on horseback accompanying him as an escort. Every route was also carefully planned before he left. In the early 19th century, traveling as an emperor was very dangerous. Just one piece of wrong information or a sudden attack could change the course of the entire war. But the day came when Napoleon's reign finally ended. On June 18, 1815, the famous Battle of Waterloo took place. This was the battle that ended his empire. After the French army was defeated, the Prussian soldiers quickly advanced. As they pursued, they captured Napoleon's personal campaign carriage. It was almost untouched. When they opened the carriage, they found many valuable items left inside. There were gold coins, diamonds, personal books, and dining utensils. And there were also military maps showing Napoleon's planned operations before his defeat. Although those plans no longer had any value in the war itself because the battle was over, they became very important to historians. Because of this, they better understood how Napoleon thought and planned in the last weeks of his reign. After Waterloo, this carriage became a war trophy. It changed hands several times before eventually being displayed to the public in London as one of the most famous historical exhibits of its time. To this day, Napoleon's actual campaign carriage remains one of the most important historical vehicles in Europe. It doesn't have the most gold, nor does it have the most beautiful decorations. But very few carriages have witnessed the fall of an empire. And there are also very few vehicles that have been silent witnesses to the night when Napoleon lost his army, his power, and his freedom. Number 7, the Concord Stagecoach, United States. If the earlier carriages on this list were made for kings and emperors, the next one was made for ordinary people. But make no mistake, it played a huge role in American history. This is the Concord Stagecoach. In 1827, the Abbott Downing Company began making stagecoaches in the town of Concord, New Hampshire. Soon it became the most popular vehicle for long journeys across America. When there were still no railroads in many parts of the country, this was the main way for people to reach distant places. It didn't just carry passengers, it also transported letters, important documents, money, gold, and various goods. In other words, it was an important part of America's growth as their communities expanded westward. One of the best features of the Concord Stagecoach was its suspension. Instead of metal springs, its makers used thick leather braces. When it traveled on rocky roads, the entire body of the carriage would sway gently. Because of this, the force of the shaking was reduced compared to carriages without this design. But don't think that the ride was comfortable. In fact, if you ride this for just a few days, you could get dizzy because of the constant swaying. Inside the carriage, there are 3 seats with 3 people on each seat, so 9 passengers can ride inside. If the inside is full, there are passengers who will sit on the roof along with their luggage. There, they are directly exposed to the sun, get rained on, and covered in dust while the carriage is moving. The journey from St. Louis to San Francisco takes about 25 days. Every 10 to 15 miles, they stop at relay stations to change horses. There, the passengers also eat quickly before continuing their journey. According to stories from that time, the food at the relay stations wasn't very good either. Usually, they serve salty meat, beans, hard biscuits, and very strong coffee. At night, travelers often just slept on the floor of the station along with the other passengers. There was another danger: bandits. Because many stagecoaches carried money and gold, they were often targeted by armed bandits. That's why, on many trips, an armed guard would sit next to the driver holding a shotgun. This is also where the well-known phrase riding shotgun came from. Until now, the Concord Stagecoach is considered one of the most famous vehicles in American history. Before trains and modern vehicles arrived, this was what connected the distant parts of the country and helped transport people, trade, and communication across the American frontier. Number 6, France's last coronation coach. Of all the royal carriages made in France, only one has survived until now. This is the coronation coach of King Charles X. This is not just an old carriage. It is a surviving symbol of more than 1,000 years of French royal tradition. For many centuries, whenever a new king was to ascend the throne, he was brought to Reims Cathedral riding a special coronation carriage. That is where the most important ceremony of the French monarchy is held. But when the French Revolution broke out in 1789, many symbols of the monarchy were destroyed, burned, or demolished by the revolutionaries. This included almost all of France's royal carriages. Because of this, only one coronation coach remains to this day, and that's the one used by King Charles X. Today, it can be seen at the Gallery of Coaches in the Palace of Versailles, where it is carefully preserved as one of France's most important historical vehicles. This carriage is enormous. It measures almost 6 to 6.5 meters long and about 4 to 4.5 meters tall. It is estimated to weigh between 4 to 5 tons. Almost every part of its exterior is covered with golden decorations and bronze sculptures. These are not just ordinary decorations. Each design was made to show that the King of France has a divine right to rule. At that time, many people believed that the king's power was directly given by God, so even the carriage itself had to display power and grandeur. Inside, you would see thick red velvet fabric with detailed gold embroidery. The combination of red and gold has long been a symbol of French royalty. In 1825, Charles X used this carriage for his coronation. He was the last king of France to undergo the traditional coronation at Reims Cathedral. But there was a big problem. While he was trying to restore the former power of the kings, people's way of thinking was quickly changing. After the French Revolution, more citizens supported ideas about freedom, equal rights, and limits on the power of kings. Because of this, support for the old system of monarchy gradually weakened. In other words, while the coronation of Charles X was very grand, many people no longer believed in the message he wanted to show. Just 5 years later, the July Revolution broke out in 1830, forcing Charles X to abdicate the throne and be exiled from France. Along with this, the era of the Bourbon Restoration also came to an end. There was never again a traditional coronation at Reims Cathedral, and no subsequent French king ever used this kind of coronation coach. Because of this, this carriage became a silent reminder of the last time France tried to restore the former power of its kings. To this day, this is the only remaining coronation carriage of the French monarchy that the public can still see. It's not just a beautiful carriage. It is an important piece of history that reminds us how quickly the power of a kingdom can change. Number 5, Qin Shi Huang's Bronze Chariots, China. In 1980, archaeologists discovered something near the tomb of Qin Shi Huang, the first emperor who unified all of China. He is known as the leader who started the construction of the Great Wall of China and has a tomb guarded by thousands of terracotta warriors. But it wasn't just soldiers that were found there. There were also 2 extraordinary bronze chariots buried in the ground for more than 2,200 years. They are not life-sized. They are only about half the size of a real chariot. But don't think that these are just simple models. In fact, they are among the finest examples of ancient engineering. When these were discovered, most of their parts were almost crushed because of the weight of the soil that had been pressing down on them for such a long time. It took many years before experts were able to reconstruct the 2 chariots. The first chariot is called the High Chariot, an open chariot with a bronze canopy on top. It is believed that this was used as an escort vehicle or for imperial inspections and ceremonies. The second carriage is called the Comfort Carriage. Its design is more enclosed, with a roof, windows that can be opened and closed, and its own compartment inside. Many historians believe that this is the model specifically intended for the emperor himself. But the most impressive thing is the number of small pieces that make it up. Each carriage is made up of more than 3,400 separate bronze parts. This includes the axles, wheels, spokes, harness, chains, pins, and various decorations. All of these were made with an extremely high level of precision. Even the 4 horses in each carriage have different appearances. Their faces, bodies, and positions are not the same. They were made to look like real horses. Even more impressive are the bronze reins. Although made of metal, they can flex like real leather. There are also bronze screens on the windows of the comfort carriage. It lets air in while blocking direct view from the outside. In other words, they already had the concept of privacy more than 2,000 years before the invention of modern vehicles. These 2 bronze chariots were never actually used for real travel. They were made only as miniature replicas to be buried with the emperor. The ancient Chinese believed that their ruler could still use these in the afterlife. But even though these were just models, the makers did not skimp on them. Instead of making the design simple, they copied almost every detail of the real imperial carriage. Because of this, even today, engineers and archaeologists are still studying how they were made. The 2 bronze chariots of Qin Shi Huang are not just important artifacts. They are also among the finest proofs that the level of engineering, metalworking, and craftsmanship in ancient China was already very advanced, more than 2,200 years ago. Number 4. Catherine the Great's Imperial Carriage, Russia. During the time of Catherine the Great, royal carriages were not just for travel. They were also used to display the power and wealth of the Russian Empire. Catherine ruled from 1762 to 1796, and she wanted to prove that Russia could match the strongest kingdoms in Europe. Some of her carriages can still be seen today at the Armory Chamber in the Moscow Kremlin. These are enormous and are pulled by 8 horses. The body is made of wood, but it's covered with gold leaf and adorned with elaborate paintings and bronze decorations that symbolize the power of the empress. Inside, you can see silk, velvet, gold embroidery, and other luxurious decorations. But it wasn't made just to look beautiful. Every public procession was Catherine's way of showing the people the strength of her leadership. It was also a silent message to other countries that Russia was already a powerful empire. Making a carriage like this wasn't easy either. Russia is vast, and the roads are often muddy, icy, or bumpy. So aside from being beautiful, each carriage also needed to be sturdy. Because of this, Russian coach builders combined the best techniques from Europe with materials suited to Russia's climate. The result was carriages that were not only luxurious but also durable enough for long journeys. Even today, they remain symbols of their era. This was when Catherine the Great showcased Russia's growing power to all of Europe. Number 3, the Lord Mayor's Stagecoach, London. There is a carriage in London that has been in use for over 260 years. This is the Lord Mayor's Stagecoach. It was made in 1757 and is still used today during the Lord Mayor's Show, the annual ceremony for the new Lord Mayor of London. It is one of the oldest ceremonial carriages in the world that is still regularly used. It is colored red and gold and is full of carvings and symbols of the City of London. Although it is made of wood, it has been very well maintained, so it remains in good condition even after several centuries. This tradition began in 1215, when the people of London were allowed to choose their own mayor. Since then, the parade of the new Lord Mayor has become part of the ceremony in the city. This carriage has survived wars, fires, and even the Second World War. Because of continuous restoration, it is still a functioning carriage today. In the age of cars and airplanes, it continues to remind us of more than 800 years of London's history. Number 2. The Roman racing chariot, ancient Rome. If Formula One is one of the most popular motorsports today, the Roman racing chariot was its equivalent in ancient Rome. It was used in the Circus Maximus, the largest racing arena of ancient Rome. The chariot was light and had only 2 wheels. It was pulled by 2 to 4 horses and built for extremely high speeds. Because of this, collisions and serious accidents were common. When the chariot overturned, the driver could even be dragged because the reins of the horses were wrapped around his body. But the danger came with immense fame and wealth. One of the most famous charioteers was Gaius Apuleius Diocles. who won over 1,000 races. According to historians, he was one of the highest-earning athletes of the ancient world. The Roman racing chariot shows that more than 2,000 years ago, people already loved speed, competition, and sports entertainment. Number 1, the Diamond Jubilee Stagecoach, United Kingdom. The Diamond Jubilee Stagecoach is the newest carriage in Britain's royal collection. It was made in 2012 as a gift to Queen Elizabeth II. What makes it unique is that many of the materials used in its construction came from important places in Britain's history, including the Tower of London, HMS Victory, and other famous buildings and monuments. Because of this, it's like a moving museum. Unlike the old gold Stagecoach, this carriage is modern. It has hydraulic suspension, heating, and electric windows, making the ride more comfortable. King Charles III used it after his coronation in 2023. The Diamond Jubilee Stagecoach combines modern technology and over 1,000 years of British history. So it's not just a simple royal carriage. It is also a symbol of the British monarchy's long history and its survival to this day.